Hello, welcome back to the Globe Feed. Please take a look at this video of Dineo Ranaka talking spirituality, judgment, and acceptance. You guys do know that rumors sparked that she is a Sangoma, and she did confirm that she was on that path but did not attend initiation as much as she should for her to be called a Sangoma at this point. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. And I love you.
The church. So I haven't been to church in a long time. And in a while, my girlfriends will tell you, in a while. And I do enjoy church, but the one church that I'm most concerned about is the church within self and the relationship with Creator within self, within mind, spirit, culture. By culture, I'll remind you again, every time I speak of culture, I don't speak of how you were raised, your background, your traditional influences, your cultural influences, your tribe. I speak of your own personal habits behind closed doors when you don't have an audience. That's your culture. That is what qualifies the magnitude or the size of the applause or the shame when you are out in public, because what is done in private will always catch up with you out in public. What is done in the night will show in the broad daylight, etc. So to cut a long story short, haven't been to church, been missing church, and I've been talking to myself about the word for the longest time. And this morning, on my way to the store to go get stuff to make brekkies, she had a craving for a toasted salmi. So on my way to sort that out, on the young drive there, I was thinking about my spirit and that I haven't fed it in a while. And I was thinking about my experiences in the past month and a half, in the past, particularly the past week. If there's one thing I have taken away from my personal experiences in the past week, the one word that sticks out to me is acceptance. So, look, I am not too familiar with exactly where to go in the Bible when I think of certain inspirations. So as a new age person, a technological person, I come to Google. So I go to Google verses on acceptance, and the one that stuck to me was the word from Romans 14, verse 1 to 2. I hope you'll make a note of this. If you're watching, if you're listening, Romans 14, 1 to 2. Before I go into the word, I want to go into personal relationship with Christ, and I want to start with talking about judgment. So anyone would say, yeah, but like, you should be going to church every Sunday. Maybe I should be, maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe it's something that must happen that way, maybe it's not. My biggest question is always, who makes the rules? What do you believe? What does your spirit guide you to do? If you pray for discernment, what does your discernment guide you to do? There are times when my spirit tells me, lay low, stay down, be home, because your home requires for you to cultivate a certain energy. There are times when my personal spirit tells me to be within numbers where there is strength in numbers, right? And that's generally the traditional church. So for me, do as you wish, do as you please. If it makes you sleep better at night, do that. If it denies you rest at night, reconsider what it is that you're doing. So for me, I've been in a good space, been doing what makes me sleep better at night. Coming back to the word of the day, jot it down if you wish, because I'm literally just doing this as we go along. Acceptance. I want us to talk about the power of acceptance and the dangers of not accepting the way life is unfolding for you. So this might be a long video. I hope you've topped up on your data. And if you get cut short, we're already 5 minutes in, and I really haven't said much about the word, but I'm getting there. So I hope you have a data budget, because we all know that in this country, data must fall. But I stumbled upon this, Romans 14, verse 1 to 2. Acceptance, right? We're underlining acceptance. And the sublime word that has been filtered through and that has been sent to me also is judgment. Okay. And I spoke on that briefly about you doing what feels good for you. So don't worry yourself about what people are going to say, whether you're physically going to church, whether you're not. Worry more about what you're cultivating within yourself. You be the judge of you. Isolate the judgment of other people. That makes a happy life. So from judgment, we move deeply into acceptance. Romans 14, verse 1 to 2 says, welcome those who are weak in faith. I'm reading as we go along. But do not argue with them about their personal opinions. I'm going to read that again. I'm going to read it the way my mother taught me to read the Bible. Read it 3 times. Take a moment, think about it. Come back, read it again 3 times, take a moment, think about it, and then speak truthfully about what your interpretation of the word is. So, welcome those who are weak in faith, but do not argue with them about their personal opinions. That's verse 1. Verse 2 continues to say, some people's faith allows them to eat anything, very important, but the person who is weak in faith eats only vegetables. Second time reading. Welcome those who are weak in faith, but do not argue with them about their personal opinions. Some people's faith allows them to eat anything, but those who are weak in faith eat only vegetables. The latter was not read verbatim, so for the 3rd time I'm going to read it verbatim as written in the Bible that was gifted to me by my mom. As you see, she signed our surname on it. Welcome those who are weak in faith, but do not argue with them about their personal opinions. Some people's faith allows them to eat anything, but the person who is weak in faith eats only vegetables. So the reason for this gram and this IGTV video is because I just want to share with you my personal interpretation of this word. And I was going through different words, and this one really touched me instantaneously. I've been argumentative for the longest time in my life, and I have not welcomed easily the opinions of others that oppose my opinion, right? So it speaks to verse 1, welcome those who are weak in faith. It does not mean that I am saying people who have an opposing opinion from me are weak in faith. No, it does not mean that. So please understand my interpretation. You can interpret it whichever way you wish and please, but this is limited to my interpretation. The lesson for me here and the reminder is that not everyone will dance the same way to the beat of the drum as you do. So welcome those who are weak in faith. Some people dance bigger, some people dance smaller. Some other people will literally move slower, and some people will move faster to the beat of the drum. I'll typically use white people versus black people when we're dancing. White people have an awkward beat to dance. Black people generally are rhythmic when it comes to music and dance. So we catch it. We've got a groove. White people catch it, but they catch it their way. So I don't want to make it a racial thing, but I just want to give you a very obvious example. The first example that comes to head in terms of differences. So judgment, that's the sublime message. Do not judge those that are different from you. I know the Bible speaks of faith, but I'm going to speak of characteristic, and I'm going to speak of human behavior. Do not harshly judge those that are different from you. Give yourself time to understand their position. Give yourself time to appreciate their difference, right? If we break it down to faith, then we say, do not push away their difference, right? If we break it down to faith, then we say, do not push away those that need to be inspired to be a little bit more faithful. The test of time, the test of patience, the test of hardship, the test of grief, the test of life in general is usually presented by hardship, and it is usually presented through misunderstanding. It is usually presented through turbulence, and the test of character through that is then rewarded at the end of how you react or respond to either a situation or a person that is different from yourself. Do not argue with them about their personal opinions. Just don't. Just don't. If a person's personal opinion is that I shan't be eating meat in my life because of A, B, C, D, and E, don't then try and convince them out of it. Don't argue with them about why they should be eating meat. The best you can do for yourself, for your own happiness, and I'm going to come to happiness and how happiness ties into this first verse of Romans chapter 14. Don't be that person to try and push people into a corner where your word above theirs, and where you're trying to prove points, where you're trying to convince them out of their way of thinking, and you're trying to impose your way of thinking. Do not argue with them about their personal opinions. That's their opinion. Reality is relative. The way we experience life, we could be sharing the same moment right now, and you could be saying, I'm talking cuck. You've got every right to think that. Absolutely. That's your opinion. Those are your feelings. Those are your sentiments. This speaks largely to me about peace of mind and happiness, mental wellness, emotional wellness, mental well-being, being wellness, and spiritual well-being, being wellness, as well as just general health, your mind, your body, your spirit, your culture, your existence. If you ever want to be happy, and this is my opinion once again, you have every right to argue, but I would prefer it if we respect the word and not argue, but just listen. And if you post an opposing comment, I won't argue. I'll listen and find a place to understand. My opinion is that if I'm to be happy in my life, I need to, we're coming back to the word that was planted in my spirit this morning, accept that there are different opinions out there. There are people that think differently, believe differently, act differently, go to church differently, drink differently, eat differently, fall in love differently, do business differently, they date differently, they raise their children differently. They literally have different times of as and when they clean the pool, feed the cats, everything. So if I'm going to impose onto people my way of doing things, I'm only going to deny myself a peaceful rest at the end of my 24-hour day. So do not argue with their opinions. Accept their opinions. We're coming back to acceptance. Verse 2, some people's faith allows them to eat anything. Now I want you to listen. Some people's faith allows them to eat anything. But those persons who are weak in faith eat only vegetables. They are people that need to do things in a systematic way, because should they fall outside of the bracket of that system, that mantra, that routine, they will crumble, and they know themselves better than you know them. And there are people that can literally be as spontaneous as they want. They can expose themselves to people of different kinds. They can socialize with mindsets of different kinds and be exposed to overbearing influences that can possibly change their character, change their nature, change their mindsets, change the way they do things. But as much as they are exposed to these different types of people, different types of mindsets, different types of environments, situations, blah, 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 internally, their character is never changed. Internally, they do not submit to the weaknesses that they are exposed to, the darknesses that they are exposed to. Internally, they are so well balanced and so strong internally that whatever the exposure, they are not phased or changed. And then there are those that need to protect themselves so deeply and so sensitively and so carefully, because they are like sponges, they are like chameleons. The moment they are exposed to a negative person, environment, experience, whatever it may be that is a negative, they will take to that, it will change their mindset, and it will then start to cultivate negativity within them. So we are not all built and designed with the same thick skin. Some people have a thinner skin than others. I'm going to use diet as an analogy and diet as an example. There are people that can eat whatever they want to eat. They won't gain weight. And if they do gain weight, it's only like, oh, your face is slightly rounder. Oh, you're wearing 2 sizes, maybe 1.5 sizes bigger. Then there are people that just are not designed genetically to eat whatever they want. They can't afford to, because they're genetically fragile. And spiritual fragility is actually quite a thing. There are people that are spiritually fragile. You expose them, or they expose themselves to a negative spiritual influence, they will take to that because they are chameleons, they are sponges, they absorb and they adapt to what they're exposed to. Then there are people that are spiritually resilient when exposed to very, very, very harsh, anti-positive spiritual environments. They don't wither, they don't shake, they don't transform, they don't submit, they stand firm in their spiritual core. Now, it's important for you to know which of these two you are. If you are Christian and spiritual in your belief system, very important for you to discern and understand whether you are spiritually resilient or spiritually vulnerable. Because real life example, you could go to a club, and I will speak exposed to the nightlife based on my DJ career, and you're exposed to drugs, you're exposed to excessive alcohol, you're exposed to excessive sex, to drunken sex, you're exposed to women, men, you're exposed to things of the night. If you are spiritually vulnerable, protect yourself by either having a spiritual culture behind closed doors, be it by means of fasting, by means of praying, by means of this, that, and the other, blah, 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 that'll protect you before you leave the house, before you're exposed to that. If you don't have that, you will submit to the overpowering nature of the night. And if you are spiritually resilient, you could be exposed to all those things, but you know that you have the capacity to weather the temptation, the storm, the this, the that, the other. So, and also remember that as people, we may have similarities, but we are bottom line different on many levels. And it's not an easy thing to accomplish, this thing of not judging. But I take comfort in the Bible that has taught, I can't remember what verse it is, that if you are to judge, judge fairly. Don't judge unfairly. Judge fairly on grounds that you are trying to understand. And when you are working towards understanding, you arrive faster at acceptance. So judge mildly. Judge on merit. And if you've got no merit to form a judgment that will lead to your understanding and your acceptance, judge not. Judge not. So be mindful, be sensitive of people that have opposing opinions from you, and understand, truly, 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 understand that just because a person is spiritually vulnerable, it doesn't mean they are weak. It just means that they need more assistance in protecting the spirit than a spiritually resilient person does. And do not take your spiritual resilience and allow it to make you arrogant towards those that need your assistance in growing their resilience spiritually. Remain humble in your strengths, bottom line, and remain thirsty to learn from your weaknesses. So back to acceptance. Accept that we are different. Accept that in our differences, there is an opportunity to learn, to grow. Accept that in our growth, we bear different fruits. You cannot expect to plant a seed, a single seed. A single seed. Hear me out here. You cannot expect to plant a single seed, well, seeds rather, individually, that you have not read what fruit they bear, but expect those seeds to bear the same fruit. I hope I haven't complicated it too much. If you have not taken the time to understand the seeds that you possess, but you take the action to plant these seeds, limit your expectation of them bearing the same fruit. So when they do come to fruition and they bear fruit, these seeds of yours that will eventually turn into plants, when you see that the fruits are different, accept each fruit for the nourishment it brings. So my bottom line is this: if you accept each and every individual in your life that you encounter, you will do yourself a justice by allowing yourself to be educated by the difference between yourself and that person, and thus you grow more in the knowledge of self, in the resilience of spirit, in the wellness of mind, in the ease of heart, because each different person brings to the table something for you to learn. And I've learned in life that we go through so many different encounters with different people, so many different experiences with different people for one simple reason: to learn more about ourselves. And the more we learn about ourselves, the better we engage with other people. Now, trust me, it is not easy. Every day I'm faced with a challenge that tests my character, but I too will listen to this podcast, this vlog, and hopefully grab some seeds from it. Yeah, that was me. My understanding of the word today. I wish you a fantastic week ahead. Do not judge one another, but rather accept one another. Romans 14, verse 1 to 2. Now read it how you want. Understand it how you want. And I hope how you interpret it adds value to you and those around you. Live light, laugh long, love the ones you're with, and serve the ones you love.